again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Channel 23's The Faces of Carlsbad. And today we're coming from the beautiful Blue House in the center of beautiful Carlsbad. And we are sponsored, I should say, by Intrepid Potash, and we really appreciate all their help. And by the way, this program, you will be meeting people that you don't know, that you would like to know. But in the case of our first guest, I know you all know him because he's the fire chief of Carlsbad, Sir Mike Reynolds. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hello, Bob. Glad to be here. Thank you.
See, you're on top of the world now here. You know. Well, anyway, Mike, what we do in this program, and people probably, many people in Carlsbad know you, but there are still some that probably don't even know who our fire chief is, and now they're going to get to know. But I want them to know the real Mike Reynolds.
Uh-oh.
Where you were born, where you grew up, and what drove you into this wonderful profession of fire departments. Okay, let's start with the early days for Mike.
Early days. I was born in Washington, D.C. Lived there until I was about 11 years old. And
wait a minute. Was your father or mother into government business?
No.
I see.
No.
That's amazing. Washington, D.C.
Yeah, so that was my hometown, and essentially I say that I grew up, however, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Lived there 10 years. D.C. for 11, Milwaukee for 10, but while in Milwaukee, that's where I lived when I went to high school, and when I left town and went to college, I was living in Milwaukee.
And you went to college where? Marquette University? Or
No, I went out of state. I went to Indiana at Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame?
Yes.
Well, you were a busy man in those days, huh?
Traveling a lot, yeah. That was back in the high school, early 60s, college, late 60s.
Yeah. What did you remember mostly about your days in Washington, D.C. as a young child?
The most memorable events are the times that I spent with my grandmother as a youngster, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, just wandering around downtown D.C. And she had a way of getting us into places that no one else could get into, getting into meetings and buildings and meeting people and getting into their offices and visiting with people that you wouldn't expect to be able to get to see, because she had some connections with some of the security guards there in D.C.
That always helps, doesn't
it? Got to sit
it?
across the desk and visit with Richard Nixon when he was Eisenhower's vice president. Got to sit in the Senate caucus room when they were interrogating Jimmy Hoffa and Beck from the Teamsters. Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and McClellan were the interrogators, and Hoffa was the witness they were interrogating.
And you saw all this?
I sat there and watched it live.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Interesting. Those were some of the most memorable events in D.C. Just visiting the buildings. Back then in the 50s, the security wasn't what it is now, and you could actually get in and tour and see people and meet people. And,
oh, yes. Well, that's amazing. And then you moved to Milwaukee. What brought you to Milwaukee?
I actually went from D.C. to Wyoming, and then from Wyoming back to Milwaukee. My parents moved. My father just requested transfers from time to time. He worked for the American Automobile Association, and saw an opportunity somewhere, so he requested a transfer, and we would move. So.
Working for the AAA, was that it?
Yes, AAA they called it.
AAA.
Yeah.
It's amazing because in a job like that is like having a father who was a railroader moving here and there.
Or a military.
Or military, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, of the places as you were growing up, what did you enjoy the most? Wyoming, or Wisconsin, or D.C.?
I liked a lot of each place. Wyoming I really liked. I liked the outdoors, the remoteness. You could go fishing and hunting and whatever you wanted to do, and never see anybody for as long as you were out there, and you wouldn't have to go very far.
Oh my gosh, yes. Where in Wyoming did you live?
Casper.
Casper?
Yeah.
I've been through Casper. Yeah, well that's amazing.
I later moved back there after, I lived in Milwaukee, and then I lived in Minneapolis for 7 years, and then when I left Minneapolis I moved back to Wyoming because I did like it there, and that's where I went to work as a paramedic for the first time.
Oh, that's what got you into this business, as a paramedic.
Right.
And did you go back to Casper, or was it a different
Went back
city?
to Casper and worked at Memorial Hospital in Natrona County as a paramedic from 78 to 82.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what did you enjoy about Wisconsin, Milwaukee?
Well, of course,
And don't say the beer companies.
beer, cheese. How about cheese?
Yeah, well, the cheese company's fine.
Now, Milwaukee was an interesting town. It was very, very clean for a large city.
Yeah.
A lot of culture, a lot of activities, a lot of entertainment. My father was also a professional musician and played in a dinner club there in Milwaukee called Mamie's Grotto.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, when I was in high school, I would take dates down there, which was an unusual place for a high school kid to take a date, and we'd dance and eat well and have a good time in places like that. I met people there, musicians that would come to town and ask my dad to play during intermissions for them.
Wow.
Fairly big names, and it was interesting town. A lot of activities and a lot of good time. I remember going to an Oktoberfest in Milwaukee. I think it was the last one I went to when I lived there. The entertainment was Aretha Franklin at that time.
Oh my goodness, gee.
Big Oktoberfest is big in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Do you ever remember the Schrader Hotel?
The Schrader Hotel, absolutely.
Yeah, I stayed there a couple
Did
times.
you?
I had some friends that
Right down
I
on
was
Wisconsin Avenue.
Yeah,
right by the river.
That's right.
Yeah.
Beautiful hotel.
Yeah.
Beautiful hotel. And so you got into the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
And what drew you to that?
That's kind of a long, involved story, but we had some emergency health issues in the family that got me interested in it, because I was never really interested in medicine or the life sciences until that happened, and then I did some research and got interested in it, and of course the TV show was popular at that time in the 70s, Emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So combining that with a little bit of the study and motivation I had, I got very interested in emergency medical services, and that's how I got into it.
Oh my gosh.
Took some courses in Minneapolis area, and then just went into it professionally from about 78 on.
So you lived in an area that in the wintertime was quite interesting with the cold weather and snow, and then you moved to Wyoming, and you thought, well, here I'm going to get out here in the wide open spaces where it snowed again, right?
More snow, yeah, more wind and snow there. And Minnesota was cold, of course. A lot of snow, a lot of cold weather, and I really enjoyed it there. I missed the winter.
Oh,
I miss playing in the winter. I don't miss working in it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, what drew you to Carlsbad?
Oh, I had a friend in Wyoming who made a business offer to me to go into business with him. I moved down to Roswell with him, and then to Artesia, and then I had been out of emergency medical services for about 5 or 6 years, and my wife Kathy knew that I missed it, although I said I didn't. She sensed that I did, and urged me to get back into it. And I was a little hesitant because at that time I'd have to go back through the basic EMT, the intermediate training, and the paramedic training all over again, which was pretty involved. Yeah. But she encouraged me to do it, and I went ahead and did it, and I'm glad I did.
Isn't it amazing how wives can sense what a man is really, or their husband is really thinking?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. So.
Now, where did you meet Kathy?
In Artesia.
In Artesia.
Yeah. She's a bulldog.
Does she root for the Artesia Bulldogs when they play Carlsbad?
Absolutely.
Oh, that must be a split thing, though, huh?
It is. Yeah, I'm there for the caveman, and she's there for the bulldogs.
Oh, brother. So you met her in Artesia, and did you have any children, Michael? I never found out the background on it.
Yeah, I had on my first wife. I'm divorced from my first wife, and we have 3 girls, and then Kathy has 4 kids, 4 children. So between the 2 of us, we've got 7 kids and 16 grandchildren.
You're kidding, 16 grandchildren. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you look so young, you don't need the 16 grandchildren. So where do the children live?
I've got the 3 girls in Minnesota, one in Crystal. She teaches school in what's called the Spanish Immersion School in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, right next to Crystal. And she has a daughter, one of my children. And then another daughter that lives in Minneapolis proper. She has 3 children. Another daughter down in Lonsdale, which is right near Northfield, and
Yeah,
she
I've been
has
to
3
Northfield, yeah.
children too.
There was a
And
famous raid there years ago,
Yeah.
back when they rode horses, right?
Jesse James in
Jesse
Northfield,
James in
Minnesota.
Northfield, Minnesota.
In fact, they celebrate that every year right around Labor Day, sometime in September. They have the defeat of Jesse James days in Northfield.
Oh, is
they
that what they call
reenact? Yeah, they reenact the bank robbery downtown on horseback.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
So anyway, and then you have, and Kathy's got her children are located where?
There's she has a daughter in Alamogordo with 3 children. Got a daughter here in Carlsbad with 2, and 2 sons here in Carlsbad. One with 2, and one with and the other one with 2.
Quite a family.
Yeah, keeps us busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got involved in the fire department, and you've made a success out of the fire department. I think we've got one of the best fire departments in the state of New Mexico.
That's what we've been told. Yeah.
Yeah.
People look to us for a lot of things. A lot of examples of what we do. They look to us. They call us asking how we got certain programs going and what certain policies are that we've initiated. I get calls quite frequently from other departments, and nationwide too.
Now, you do a lot of traveling too in your job, don't you? I don't mean just on fire trucks around town, which you do, but
I do a little bit now, not as much now as I used to, traveling to conferences and things, but I go to the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland once a year for their Executive Fire Officer Symposium, and I just returned from there this past weekend.
yeah, tell us about that. I've heard nice things about it, but I think the people would like to know
The
about
National Fire Academy is an incredible place. It's very high key, very high caliber educational facility for firefighters and fire officers. They have programs there in arson investigation, executive leadership, executive development, community risk reduction, tactical operations, emergency medical services operations, managing the fire service, all kinds of programs for the fire service personnel, and they're free of charge. You go there for free. You pay for your own airfare, but they reimburse you when the class is over, so the airfare is free. The only thing you pay for is your meal ticket when you go there, and the city usually picks that up, and that's pretty reasonable for 2 weeks. It's about $150 to $175 for 2 weeks of meals, and they feed you like kings down there.
What's the major food that they feed firefighters?
It's everything you can think of. It's a variety. They have different dishes every day on their buffet line, and then they have a cafeteria style line also. You go through, they'll custom make breakfasts for you and lunches for you, sandwich bars. It's usually in a 2-week period, people come back and say they gained way too much weight when they're at the fire academy.
That rings a bell. Anyway, while you were down there, were you able to visit some of the places you remember when you were younger?
Yeah, I went to this time. I went down to D.C., which is about 75 miles from the academy in Emmitsburg, and had the opportunity to visit with some of the curators at the Smithsonian because we are donating our Jaws of Life tool to them, since it's one of the original models of the Jaws from the 1970s.
Oh my God, the Jaws of Life. Now you've got an updated version. Right?
We bought a new one. We had some donations from the community in order to buy a new tool, because when the Smithsonian called me, they asked for this, if we would be interested in donating it, and I said absolutely. However, we're still using it, which they found hard to believe, but we were still using it. So I had to replace it with another tool before we could send it off.
Now, for those people who don't know what a Jaws of Life is, tell us a little bit about the Jaws of Life.
It's a hydraulic tool. The old one had arms about 33 inches to 34 inches long on it. Hydraulic tool that applies about 10,000 pounds per square inch of pressure at the tips as it opens up, and you can apply that same pressure as you're closing it. So you use it to get victims out of crashed vehicles that are trapped and cannot get out themselves, where the things are crushed and damaged so badly you can't open them up. We use that tool to break the hinges on the doors, break them loose, get the door off the car, We have cutter tips that can go on our new tools that can actually cut the A, B, and C posts on the top, take the tops off, break seats loose from the floor, pull the whole dashboard and steering wheel up away from the victim and get them out.
Now, the older one that we had, when did you get that?
It was bought in 1977.
And it was built in that particular period of time, or was it built before then?
It was, I think it was built in 76 or 75, 76, somewhere in there.
And that was one of the
original models that came out in the 70s.
Wow. Yeah. And so we're going to send that to Washington, D.C., the museum?
It'll be in the Smithsonian Institute in their transportation display in the Museum of American History. And National Museum of American History. And
it'll say Carlsbad, New Mexico, I'm sure.
In fact, the display is going to have several things from Carlsbad and Eddy County in it. The DWI program that Cindy Sharif heads up here in Carlsbad and Eddy County, the Smithsonian discovered that they have highway signs that are still up that are the oldest in the nation. So they wanted one of those signs for their display, and Cindy's packaging that up, and it's going to be sent to the Smithsonian. And that's how they got in touch with me, through Cindy. They were asking about the Jaws, and Cindy referred them to me, and sure enough, we got together on it.
So from the early days when you were sitting in and listening to the new president, Mr. Nixon?
Well, he was vice president for Eisenhower at that time. Yeah.
What a wonderful experience.
It was an interesting time for a young kid to be in D.C.
Well, in our time remaining, Mike, what do you do in your spare time? Now, I know you don't have much spare time, but what do you do?
I spend a lot of time just getting things done at home that I didn't have time to do at work. You know, because when you're at work, there's a lot of interruptions. The phone's ringing, people are coming in.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I try to do, grant writing and communications with people and professional reading, I'll do that at home. I like to travel. I like to ski. I got a pilot's license, but I haven't been able to afford to fly for quite a few years because the cost of renting an airplane now is extraordinary.
But in case of an emergency, if Guy Lutman and I needed to get out of town in a hurry, would you be able to fly us out?
Not legally.
Oh, not legally?
Of course, if you had to get out of town in a hurry, it probably wouldn't be a legal situation anyway.
Oh, okay. I should have brought that. Anyway, I understand that you're also interested in the theater.
Oh yes, I go to all the community theater productions here in Carlsbad, buy season tickets every year. Yeah. Love them. It's fantastic production. It's great to see people that you live with and work with and know personally performing on the stage. It gives you a whole different perspective on these people.
Well, in the one play I was in one year where I was shot and killed early in the play, you weren't the one who was sitting in there clapping, were you?
Applaud? No. I can usually control myself.
Oh, okay. No, I notice that you're there quite often when I'm down there, and I really appreciate you and Kathy coming by because you're one of our loyal viewers of our plays.
I got surprised on one play. I know Matt Fletcher was in the play, and I guess you guys got together and wrote my wife and I into the play at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Caught me by surprise.
Yeah. Oh, we're sneaky down there at that theater. Have you ever been in a play yourself? We ought to get you into one.
No, I haven't been.
Yeah. Would you turn them down if we ever ask you?
Maybe not. Depends on the play and how much time we have to rehearse, because rehearsals are demanding, I know.
Well, they are, but you're on duty, so you're really seven days a week, actually. You're on call, aren't you?
Essentially, yeah. I have some really incredibly talented and skilled people working at the department, so in the last several years, numerous years, my job has become very easy in that respect, because my assistant chiefs and EMS division chief, fire marshal, executive secretary, training officer handle so much of the day-to-day operations and the actual hands-on operations of the fire department that I really don't have to worry about that much anymore. I worry more about like I say, the grant writing, the interfacing with the city government, with the state government, county government, dealing with things that they would rather not have to deal with, that I can run interference for them, so to speak.
Well, Guy Lumpman and I interviewed one of your firefighters a couple of years ago, and he said his name was Elvis Presley. Do you remember Elvis Presley?
Yeah, I know who that is. In fact, I think Guy was filming him performing at the Relay for Life over the weekend.
Yes.
We would really like to get our hands on a copy of that. We could do some damage to Elvis Presley with that tape.
Yeah, I was amazed. I thought, my gosh, I thought he had died years ago, but there he was with our fire department over here.
In fact, he went on a cruise. The ship was an Elvis cruise. All Elvis impersonators were on this cruise at the same time. Must have been incredibly interesting.
Oh, I can imagine so. But oh, that was amazing. So, what's in the future for our fire chief?
Retirement, probably at the end of the year, and then take some time to just relax and take some road trips. I'd like to see some parts of the country I've never seen, and I'd like to show my wife some parts of the country she's never seen, and just kind of relax and head out. And then when I get tired of honeydews, I'll need to find something to escape from that probably, and I'll look for something else, something that isn't real demanding, or I don't have to commit to for a lot of time, but something that I can enjoy.
Well, Mike, I'll tell you, this has been quite amazing, and an eye-opener. And you're going to retire very shortly, then, huh?
I'm intending to retire New Year's Day this year. Should be my last day at work.
Well, they're going to miss you because you've done an outstanding job.
I'm going to miss the fire service. It's been incredible. As the Grateful Dead said in their 1977 song, "Truckin'."
Yeah.
It's been a long and strange trip.
Have you ever been to Ohio?
Been through it, but never spent any time there.
Well, you're going to have to spend time in Ohio. That's an outstanding state.
I've been to Cleveland. I take that back. I have been to Cleveland.
And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I didn't get to tour it, but I was there for a funeral. But yeah.
Oh dear. Well, we won't go into that.
No.
Anyway, I want to thank you for being our guest today. It's been a real pleasure, and I want to wish you the very best in the future. But this honeydew stuff, try to stay out of that. That can be dangerous.
Speaking from experience. Huh?
Oh, yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Channel 23 and Intrepid Potash and the beautiful Blue House here, we want to just say simply goodbye and good luck.